Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, so we are starting with the unit number 2 now on capital budgeting decisions. So today's session we will try to discuss the following objectives: define capital budgeting decisions, then discuss its nature and the important features, why basically capital budgeting decisions are very important, then list and explain various techniques of capital budgeting, and we will see one of them in detail today, and subsequent classes will discuss the other things in detail. Okay, so just to tell you where we are as the syllabus is concerned, we are in the unit number 2. If you see here, capital budgeting is the unit number 2. Here this is the content. If you look, see here, major portion is basically the various methods of capital budgeting, which are also called as capital budgeting techniques. Say, for example, payback approach, accounting rate of return, that is called as ARR in short, then present value method, then internal rate of return, that is IRR. Okay, and there are certain other topics like replacement cost and discounted cash flow. Discounted cash flow is also part of capital budgeting techniques. Okay, so major portion is how financial manager can take decisions related to the huge investments, which are also termed as capital budgeting decisions. Okay, so we had seen an overview of financial management in the first unit. Okay, where financial management's purpose we had seen was to maximize the shareholders' wealth. Okay, and that sole objective guides all the financial decisions, which are 4 in number: investment decisions, liquidity decisions, financing decisions, and dividend decisions. Okay, so we a little bit discussed about liquidity management when we discussed about working flow, cash flow statements. Okay, so now we'll discuss this first type of decision, that is investment decision, which is also called as capital budgeting decisions. Okay, and these 4 decisions are having a goal of maximizing the shareholders' wealth, keeping in the mind risk and return trade-off. Okay, so this all we had discussed in the first section. So now one of them is investment decisions, which we'll see in detail in this unit. Okay, so let us first define what do you mean by the capital budgeting decisions. So the investment decisions of a firm are generally known as the capital budgeting or capital expenditure decision. That is another name we can say, investment decisions, which are the one of the very important decisions a financial manager takes, keeping into mind the maximization of shareholders' wealth as an objective and risk and return trade-off. So it is nothing but firm's decision to invest its current funds most efficiently in the long-term assets in anticipation of an expected flow of benefits over a series of years. Okay, so try to understand, it is going to have a feature, important feature, that whatever current funds we have, that we are going to invest with the idea of getting returns, not immediately, not even 1 year, 2 year, but over a series of years. Okay, so these decisions are that way important because they involve a huge capital investments, and that capital is going to get locked up for a number of years, and it will give returns or losses over a period of time. Okay, number of years. Okay, so that is for the definition. Now we'll see the examples, what exactly you mean by capital budgeting decisions. Like they may include, for example, expansion of the existing firm or particular plant. Then it may be an acquisition of a new competitor's business, or say the competitor's business, since he has not been able to face the competition. So you may acquire the similar businesses, or you acquire some new businesses into which you want to enter. Okay. Then modernization and replacement of the long-term assets. Then also sell of a division or a business, that is divestment. Investment means you are trying to invest in something new. Divestment means your own business you are trying to sell. Okay, so like if you are acquiring someone else's business, for him whose business you are acquiring, for him that is divestment, because he is trying to release some funds out of that with the idea that he may invest it somewhere else. Okay, then change in the methods of sales distribution. Okay, so this is also very capital intensive, means it requires large amount of funds if you want to change sales distribution. Then say change in advertisement campaign. Okay, that is also a huge capital which it is required. Then change in the research and development program. Okay, wherever research and development is a main area for a particular firm, they invest a good amount of money into this. Okay, so if they have to make some changes, say maybe shift their research and development facility to some other country where you have a good pool of talent available. Okay, so that is a huge decision. Okay, you are relocating your research and development center, or you may be trying to start a new research and development center somewhere in some country. Okay, so these all decisions come under the examples of capital budgeting decisions. So in general, the baseline is that the capital budgeting decisions are really very highly capital intensive, means very large amount of funds are required to invest in these decisions, and these decisions are going to have an impact over a period of more than 1 year. Okay, several years down the line, they will have an impact, either positive or negative. Fine. Is there any question till here? Are you understanding what do you mean by capital budgeting? Yes. So we are at the one of the important decisions. Okay, as the overview is concerned, we had seen there are 4 important decisions. Liquidity we have discussed a little bit, which will come in a third unit, working capital management, even more in detail. Some of the points we are here discussing the investment decisions. That means whatever capital we have raised, how do we invest it to get profits? Okay. So we had seen the definition and we had seen the examples. Now we're going ahead. We'll try to see what is the importance. Why are they so important? What are things are involved in important like investment decisions while we take the investment decisions? Okay. So you can remember it: GRFIC. G for growth, R for risk, F for funding, I for irreversibility, and complexity. Okay, so these are the points which make the investment decisions or capital budgeting decisions very important. Okay, so the first point is the growth. So as I told you already that these are very capital intensive decisions. So a firm's decision to invest in long-term assets has a decisive influence on the rate and the direction of the growth. A wrong decision can prove disastrous for continued survival of the firm. And on the other hand, unwanted or unprofitable expansion of the assets will result in heavy operating costs to the firm. Okay, and if you have inadequate investment in the growth assets, then again it will make you less competitive, and you cannot maintain your market share. Okay, so to give you some practical example, say take example of Tata Motors. Ratan Tata had a dream of providing a car of 1 lakh rupees but all of us know that the nano project is not successful. No? It could not generate that mass scale demand which is required to run the production. Okay, so it created some kind of higher say operating costs and no profits. Similarly, when I was doing my project, I used to hear the employees discussing that Tata Safari. If you remember, there was a vehicle launched by Tata Motors some years back, Tata Safari. So that is also not so much seen. If you notice, Tata Safari also created a big losses for the Tata Motors. Okay, so these vehicles when they launch, it around 5 to 6 years goes in even only research. Okay, till the launch they have already done a lot of investment of manpower, time, money into coming up with the idea and launching it in real life. Okay, and then when it is not successful, you can understand that the whole assembly line where all so many employees are working, that all is not giving any profit. Okay, there are other costs, overheads, so if you add them up, it is a huge loss, so afterwards it is said that there is a vehicle called as Tata Ace, you might have seen, which is a very successful vehicle they have launched, and it is said that that is the vehicle which achieved the break-even point the earliest as compared to any other vehicle they have launched in the near history. Okay, so you can see that if you take a good decision, it gives you profit, and when you take a wrong decision, it can create a dent in your profits. It will increase unnecessary operating cost, and at the same time you are not earning any profit. Okay, so these are all kinds of capital budgeting or investment decisions. Okay, so the growth, the rate and the direction. Rate means at what rate you are going making losses, or at what rate you are making profits. Okay, direction means negative or positive, and the rate. Okay, so that is a very important uh, point here, that growth is very much dependent on investment decisions. But out of fear of facing losses, if you don't take the decisions or take the risk of investing in new ventures, then again you will lose the market share because you will not be competitive. Okay, so you need to keep on investing. Like Tata Motors used to be named as Telco, if you remember, that was the name. Tata uh, Electrical and Locomotive Company, that was the name of the Tata Motors before. So once they entered into the car segment, that is passenger car business, that time they changed it to Tata Motors. So previously they were only into commercial vehicles. Okay, so that was a big decision. That is a big investment uh, which was involved, and obviously it keeps you competitive. Okay, now second thing is the risk. Long-term commitment of fund may also change the risk complexity of the firm. Okay, if the adoption of an investment increases average gain, but suppose the profits are fluctuating too much, okay, so then it is a risky proposition. Okay, option where you have less profits, but they are constant, not with the too much fluctuations. Okay, so that also you need to look into. If your investment decision involves that you have good profits, but the profits fluctuate too much, okay, so it is a risky thing. Okay, so that obviously is guided by the what kind of investment decisions you take. Okay, then the third one is funding, as we already discussed this point in detail, that these are all capital intensive decisions, involve a very good amount of funds, and the firm has to proactively plan for it, either coming up with an IPO, raising funds from the market, or taking a good amount of debt, or trying to utilize our own profits, or selling some, divesting in some other business and trying to divert the funds. Okay, so there are a number of things for financing in the financing domain, but you have to be proactive in taking those decisions so that you can make the huge amount of capital which is required for taking investment decisions. Now the next point is irreversibility. Irreversibility, why? Because of the two things. One is it is difficult to find a market for such capital items. Okay, like if you purchase a suppose a machine of few lakhs, okay, like uh, this press working machines are require a huge investment. Even if you want to change the BIW, the if you want to facelift your already launched products, okay, like Tata Sumo was facelift to change its look, so it requires a very huge investment in die and punch set. Okay, so pressing machine remains same, but those die and punch set itself requires crores of rupees as an investment. Okay, so when you want to sell them into the market, then obviously you cannot get the people so easily. Okay, because they are not the products like day to day are required. Okay, so obviously they are reversible with a lot of losses, or maybe it will take a lot of time. Okay, if you take a wrong decision immediately, we cannot change that. Okay, so most investment decisions are irreversible, and other decisions, even if you want to reverse them, you can do it with a lot of heavy losses or with a lot of time. Fine. And the last one is the complexity. These decisions are not simple, as we see. We can't predict. Like we have seen two examples of Tata Safari, then Nano project. When it was launched, obviously nobody must have thought it will not be successful. Okay, so we can't predict the sentiments of the people and how that product will do in future. Okay, so we can't predict what are going to be the cash inflows of that project for a number of years coming down the line. Okay, so that's a very difficult thing to say, and that is an important thing when you are trying to evaluate the two investment decisions. Okay, so they are very complex, and also there are a number of other things, like there are economic, political, social, and technological forces which cause uncertainties, isn't it? Say when Tata Nano was launched, there were the prices of steel or any other thing which is going into the vehicle was different. If you see an increase in the prices in general, then obviously you cannot limit the cost of the vehicle to 1 lakh. Okay, and we can't predict whether people would like to purchase a car of 1 lakh rupees, that is the lowest version, or they would prefer some other higher version. So these are number of complexities. Okay, so these 4 points make the investment decisions very important. 5 points. Okay. Now we discuss a little bit on what are the various types of investment decisions, just to get a idea. Like there are two classifications, two ways of classification. The first one is the decisions involving expansion of existing business, or expansion of a new business, or acquiring the new business. And this third one is replacement and modernization. Okay. So expansion of existing business is also called as related diversification. That means suppose you want to increase the capacity of the manufacture of the products which are into. Okay, so you may uh, uh, try to have another assembly line, or say other manufacturing setup to increase your product manufacturing capacity. Okay, so that is called as related diversification. Or you enter into similar product lines, like if the fertilizer company is there, they may try to come up with some other fertilizer range which they were not present previously. Okay, then expansion of the new business means altogether a new business, which is called as unrelated diversification. Okay, say when the insurance business was made private some years back, so some of the companies, they took it as an opportunity and they entered, like Tata AIG, Bajaj Alliance, HDFC Life. Okay, so these are in partnership with the outside players. Okay, so these companies, some of them were obviously into the financial domain, like HDFC was already into financial domain, so it was easy for them. But you talk about Tata, so their main business was not into that. Tata Capital is there, but you can say that's not their main business. So they diversified into the insurance business. Okay, like ICICI Prudential is there, they are already into the financial domain. So for them, it is it's a related diversification. But for other companies who are not having main businesses financials, for them to enter into insurance was a unrelated diversification. Okay, so in either case, the firm makes investment in the expectation of additional revenue. Okay, so investment in existing or new products thus are also called as revenue expansion investments. Okay, so the purpose of the first two is that you want to increase the revenue. Now the third one, that is replacement and modernization, it is where we are trying to improve our operating efficiency and reduce the costs which are going into our operations. Okay, so it is not necessarily increasing the revenue, but our profits will increase. Profit will increase by the amount we are trying to reduce our costs. Okay, say for example, a cement company may try to invest into an automatic uh, okay, sorry, again I got disconnected. Sorry for that. So replacement and modernization, they focus on improving the operating efficiency and reducing the costs. Okay, so they need not necessarily increase the revenue as we had seen in the first two cases, but they try to reduce the cost, and by that way they try to increase the profit. Okay, so they are also called as cost reduction investments. And suppose if you are involved in a very huge modernization and technological improvements, then it will also increase the revenue. Okay, but replacement and modernization decisions are generally in relation to replacing the absolute and outdated capital intensive equipments or facilities. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is one classification. Another classification is the investments in mutually exclusive say exclusive investments, independent investments, and contingent investments. Now, what do you mean by mutually exclusive investments? Means there are two projects, which are in competition to one another. So, for example, if you are trying to think about investing in a capital intensive setup where labor is reduced, say fully automatic setup, okay, where labor will be reduced, and there is some semi-automatic option available where it is a labor intensive. Okay, so the capital requirement is less, but capital labor involvement will be more. So labor intensive option and the capital intensive option. So the decision has to be taken between which one to go for. So they are mutually exclusive, and they are in competition with one another. So if you are going for semi-automatic, if you feel that it is a better option, then you will have to scrap the automatic option where the capital investment is huge but labor requirement will be less. And if you go for fully automatic, that is capital intensive, then you cannot, it's logical that you will not go for semi automatic setup. Okay, so they are called as mutually exclusive investments. Then interdependent investments means what? So independent investments means what? The projects do not have any competition with one another. If you have good amount of capital, you can go for both the projects or whatever number of projects which you are trying to evaluate. Okay. So for example, if you are trying to go for expansion of a plant capacity to manufacture additional products, okay, and another is that you are trying to enter into a new product manufacturing. Okay, so these are the two different projects which do not have any bearing on one another. So if you find both of them profitable and if you have also good amount of capital to invest in both the options, you can go for both the investments. Okay, and the third category is the contingent investments. That means if you take a decision for investing in one option, then other option comes by default. Say for example, if you are trying to uh, relocate or start a new manufacturing setup in some village, okay, where say thousands of employees are going to work, okay, so that is a primary decision you take. But just to support that man force or employee base, you will also have to have hospitals, schools, and housing complex and other things built for supporting these employees. Okay, so though that project is also capital intensive, and that will be called as a contingent investment. It depends on the decision of trying to relocate or having a new center at a particular village. Okay, so it will involve also the other facilities to be created. Okay, so that is not your primary decision. Your primary decision is to have a manufacturing setup, but to support the employee base there, you will also have to think about coming up with community facilities for those employee base. Okay, so this is about types of investment decisions. Now we are entering into the discussion of how do we select out of the available investment decisions the best one. Okay, so the three steps are involved in evaluating an investment decision. The first one is you need to estimate the cash flows. Okay, so cash flows means, suppose if you invest today 2 crores, okay, and what will be the cash inflow in the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, like this. And whatever number of years you feel that that particular thing is going to exist. So how will be the cash flows generated every year? Okay, so that estimation you need. Okay, so and that is not very easy. Then estimation of a required rate of return, the opportunity cost of capital. So this we already discussed. Suppose 2 crores are not invested uh, into the option which you have decided to go for, and if you would have put your money somewhere else, okay, so what would have happened to that capital? How it would have grown? In general, how it will grow? Say if you put it in fixed deposit, what will be the rate? You know. Okay, so in general, for the market scenario, what is the average rate of return if you're keeping it for 1 year? So that rate becomes the say deciding factor. So if your profits which you're generating are higher than that rate, then only it is suggested to go for that particular investment decision. But if you feel after evaluation that the profits which are going to be generated are lesser than that required rate of return, then why to take so much of pain? So why to spend so much of time and energy and manpower into an option where you are investing, but you are not going to get even what is the opportunity cost of capital? Okay, so I hope you are understanding this, which we had discussed several times in the previous unit as well. Okay, and the third and important one is the application of a decision rule for making the choice. So here where we are going to spend a good amount of time trying to understand what are the various decision rules. Decision rules, basically what are the different methods which are also called as capital budgeting techniques. Okay, so estimation of the cash flows, then having a required rate of return with which our returns will be compared. If they are higher, only then that will be taken for consideration. If it is lower, then you are not going to consider it for comparison with other investment options. And the third one is what methodology or decision rule you use for evaluation. Okay, so the decision rule which we will see in the subsequent slides and the next sessions, we'll see that these are the certain principles which it should follow. Okay, so investment decision rule parameters. Okay, so first thing is it should maximize the shareholders' wealth. This we already seen. Now it should consider all the cash flows. You know, whatever cash flows in future are going to come, everything we must consider. If you are not going to consider all the cash flows, then it is not a good investment decision rule. That is not a good method, okay, of true profitability. Then it should provide for an objective and unambiguous way of separating good projects from the bad projects. Okay, so here anybody is evaluating the project, say 5 projects, different projects with this method, everyone should come up with the same list of preference. You know, there should not be any ambiguity in applying that particular method. It should help ranking of projects according to their true profitability. This is already discussed. It should recognize the fact that bigger cash flows are preferable to smaller ones, and early cash flows are preferable to the latter ones. Okay, so time value of money, it should consider give importance to the time value of the money. Okay, and the bigger cash flows are better than the smaller ones. Okay. So this also it should help to choose among mutually exclusive projects, that project which maximizes the shareholders' wealth. Because this is a repetitive point. And the last one is should be a criterion which is applicable to any conceivable investment project independent of others. Okay, so independently you should be able to evaluate the projects. They should not have any effect of the other projects on it while evaluating with the method. Okay, so main points are it should maximize the shareholders' wealth. It should consider all the cash flows. It's not that only 3 or 4 years cash flows are considered for evaluating, and other 3 years, although the cash flows are available, we are not considering it in our method. Okay, so that we'll see in which methods it happens. Okay, then it should give importance to the bigger cash flows as compared to the smaller ones, and earlier cash flows as compared to the latter ones. Okay, so your method should capture this in the logic which you are using for evaluation. Fine. So we'll see the list now. The discounted cash flow criteria and non-discounted cash flow criteria. So not discounted means you are giving value to the time value of the money. Okay, you know that 1 lakh rupees if we get today is better than getting 1 lakh rupees after a year. Okay, so because that money has a time value, it doesn't remain same. The inflation is there, and there are other interests which you earn on that. So, and the another one is non-discounted. That means they do not generally pay attention to the time value of the money. So except the payback period, there are some importance given in discounted as well as accounting rate. Okay, so today we'll see only the payback period, and other sessions we will go through the other methods one by one. So most important one here is net present value method. Okay, so that will be the focus of this particular unit. So the main method is net present value method, which follows most of the principles of the decision rule. Now we'll just discuss the payback period just to get you understand what exactly is the investment decision criteria we use or capital budgeting technique. Means what it is one of the most popular and widely used traditional methods of evaluating investment decisions. So what is done simply, initial investment is divided by the annual cash inflows. Okay, so payback is number of years required to recover the original cash invested in the project. So for equal annual cash flows, this is the equation which we use, and for unequal, it will be you go on adding the inflows as long as you don't cover the original investment. Okay, so we'll see the example, simple example, then we'll go to an actual problem and then we'll end. So suppose there is a project which requires a cash outflow of 20,000 rupees. Okay, so 20,000 rupees you invested, and there are cash inflows which we are predicting that it will generate over 4 years. Like first year it will generate 8,000, then 7,000, 4,000, 3,000. Okay, so now what we are trying to find out is by what year it will recover the complete 20,000 rupees. Okay, so earlier the better. So if you have 3 projects with different payback periods, the project which is having the least payback period will be selected as the best one. Okay, so it will be 8 plus 7, 15 plus 4, that is 90,000 in 3 years you cover, and remaining 1,000 will be covered by say 3,000. Like how much time it requires to cover 1,000 rupees if 3,000 rupees is going to come in the next year. Okay, so it will come in 4 years, 4 months. Okay, 3,000 rupees in a year, that means 1,000 rupees will require 4 months to cover. So that means 3 years, 4 months. This project will recover complete 20,000 rupees. Is this clear? This concept payback?
No, sir. Please explain again.
See, the rationale here of payback period is we are trying to find out the number of years which is required to get back the investment which you have done. Say let's like break even point. Okay, the point of no profit, no loss. So 20,000 I invested. Okay, so first year how much I recovered? 8,000. So how much is remaining? 12,000. Okay, by the end of the first year, 12,000 rupees are only required to be recovered. After second year, at the end of the second year, I again recover 7,000 rupees out of that by being the profit which I earned through that particular investment. So how much remains? 5,000 rupees only remain by the end of the second year. Now, by the end of the third year, I again add 4,000 rupees as the profit. So how much is remaining? Only 1,000 rupees is remaining. Is this clear? In 3 years, I could recover 90,000 rupees. Sorry, 19,000 rupees out of 20,000.
19.
Now, next complete year is not required to recover the remaining 1,000 rupees. So, if 3,000 rupees is generated in a uniform at a uniform rate throughout the 4th year, 1,000 rupees will be generated in 4 months, isn't it?
Right, sir. Yes,
okay,
sir.
so you add 4 months. So after 3 years, 4 months, you have completely recovered 20,000 rupees, and after that, whatever profit comes is your pure profit. Okay. So
yes,
suppose you are given another example. Suppose same 20,000 rupees you are investing, but its payback period is suppose 10,000 and 10,000. In first 2 years itself, it recovers the 20,000 rupees back. So which one will you prefer?
10,000 next one.
Second one, isn't it?
Second
so because
one.
it has a lesser payback period. Okay, so this is a simple logic. Okay, so this is a traditionally used, but can you tell me, suppose if I give you even fifth year's cash flows and 6th years of cash flow. Suppose there is 2,500 and 5,000 rupees, suppose. So are those cash flows considered here?
No, sir.
No, they are not considered. Okay, so it doesn't give you true profitability. Neither are we differentiating 8,000 rupees you are getting after the end of 1 year and 7,000 after 2 years. So they are not same. No, you are considering them as equals. There is a difference. That time value factor we are not considering. That is called as discounting. When 7,000 rupees after 2 years, what does it mean if I convert it to today's price? It will be lesser value. Same way, 8,000 rupees after 1 year means what is the value of 8,000 today? There are some formulas which we'll see in the next class. Okay, so that is called as discounting the future cash inflows. Okay, the present value you know 20,000 is 20,000 today, but 8,000 rupees after 1 year you are getting. That means what is going to be the value of 8,000 today? It will not be 8,000. It will be lesser than 8,000. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The cost of capital, that rate of interest, is used to discount it and to convert it into today's value. Okay, so we'll just quickly go through an problem. Okay, sorry. This is payback period acceptance rule is the project would be accepted if its payback period is less than the maximum or the standard payback period set by the management. Okay, so management will have a rule if the payback period is lesser than the standard payback period, then only we'll consider it for evaluation, comparing with other similar projects having lesser standard payback period. Payback period lesser than the standard payback period. So suppose 3 years is something which you have are using as a yardstick. तो 3 या उससे कम वाले ही projects आप consider करने वाले हो. If it is going beyond 3 years, then it gets rejected there itself. As a ranking method, it gives highest ranking to the projects which has the shortest payback period and lowest ranking to the projects with the highest payback period. Okay. Is this clear? This is a very simple one, not complicated.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now you just try to see here this example. This is from the book of I.M. Pandey. Companies considering the following investment. There are 4 projects which you are asked to evaluate. So we are only looking at the payback method. Huh? The ARR, IRR, NPV and all that we'll see as and when we discuss them. Okay. So look at the project A. Initial is 10,000, that is shown as a minus 10,000. So 10,000 is the investment. Okay. And it has recovered its complete investment in the first year itself. So what is the payback period here? Project A?
1 year.
1 year, isn't it? Then project B, no, it is going to take 2.
सर ते फॉर्म सबमिट होत आहोत म्हणून केलं होतं, आता झालं सर.
काय म्हणतोय? Hello? Who is speaking? Okay. So 10,000 is the initial investment again, then 7,500 is required in the first year and remaining 2,500 will require 1/3 year, that is 4 months. Okay, so 4 months to recover another 2,500. So 1 year 4 months period is required as a payback period for project B. Then project C is 2 years and 4 months. Okay, because that is not 12,000, that is 2,000, 4,000 and 12,000. Okay, so 2,000 rupees are recovered in the first year, then 4,000, that is 6,000, and remaining 4,000 out of 12,000 will be recovered in first 4 months of the third year. Are you getting this?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and the last project B is again having the 1 year as the payback period, but it is also generating cash flows in the second and the third year. So although payback period of the project A and D is same, which one will you prefer?
First one.
First one. Why? It is not generating anything in the second and the third year, no? That means you just invested 10,000 and you recovered. That's it. You did not get any positive profit. So your all manpower which you invested, money and the time which you invested was wasted. You did not earn anything.
Hello.
So D is better. D is better because even after recovering your 10,000 original capital which you invested, it was profitable for the next 2 years, giving you 3,000 rupees and 13,000 rupees. Project A cash inflows are not present only for the subsequent years. So this is just an example, and this is a very crude method, the most traditional and the simplistic method. Okay, so as you go ahead with ARR, IRR and the NPV concept, you will see that it is more practical and it gives you the indication of the true profitability of the project, and it will consider all the cash inflows. It will give importance to the time value of the money. These are the major two things. Fine.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, so we end here. If you have any questions, you can ask me or we'll end. So it was a very simple method here.
हॅलो सर.
Yes.
सर पेबॅक पिरियड मध्ये आपण इन्फ्लेशनचं का नाही ऍड करत? म्हणजे 10,000 आत्ता भरले तर मग पूर्ण 10,000 रिकव्हर करायला आपल्याला 1 वर्ष प्लस काहीतरी लागेल ना आता या एक्झाम्पल नुसार इन्फ्लेशन जर धरलं तर?
नाही, इन्फ्लेशन बघितलं तर अजून जास्त वेळ लागेल. See, what happens is this 10,000 which you are earning out after 1 year, if you convert it into today's value with even 7% interest rate, you know, it will not be 10,000, it will be something less than 10,000. You need to find out that amount which will become 10,000 after 1 year at the interest rate of say 7%. Hello, Joe?
हा सर येत आहे.
So I'll explain this concept in more detail in the next session. So be present for that. But here we are ignoring the time value. That's what. So there is no question here of considering inflation. Okay. So simply whatever is the value we are predicting for the future cash flows after 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, that we are just going on subtracting till the point we do not recover our original investment. That time is called as a payback period. Okay, so here there is no concept of time value of money, and that is wrong. Okay, so if there are very small investments, you can apply for this, or maybe your firm is a smaller one and you don't require very detailed calculations, or the capital is not huge. Okay, so in that case, you can go for the simplistic methods, but the concept is clear. It's a very simple concept. Is that okay?
Yes sir, thank you sir.
Yes, sir.
So you wait for the next sessions. In detail, we'll see how do we calculate. Suppose if we are going to get say 10,000 rupees next year, what will be its value today? That is called as net present value. Is what is its present value? Suppose if you are getting 2 lakh rupees after 2 years, so what will be its value today? It will not be 2,000 or 2 lakh. It will be something lesser than that. Okay, so that we'll see next time in detail. So under net present value method, we will see that concept. Okay, any other question?
No, sir.